it. Yeah.
Hi everybody, my name's Nate. I'm an alcoholic. Haven't found it necessary to take a drink or put a drug in my body since September 15th of 2008. So that put me right at 10 years. Couple of house cleaning things. Thanks for all my new Freedom Boys, my sponsees for showing up to support. Thank you guys for being here, and welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Can I see a show of hands for everybody who's under a year of sobriety? Okay, great. A lot of you guys, most of you. Okay, well, welcome. Welcome. I hope you find what I found here. I guess I'll start out. I'm going to try and qualify quick, because I've had a lot happen to me in both drinking and sobriety. So hopefully I can touch on all of it. Started drinking when I was 12. It was there. Restless, irritable, and discontent. I was that guy in class that no teacher wanted. I was just terrible, constantly just a rebel without a clue, a little kid. And I started drinking when I was 12, and I found it. It happened. That thing we talk about here that happened to me. And I realized that I was going to do that as much as possible. I identify as an alcoholic because alcohol was always on the table. But I did everything else too. It was all anti-me medication. If you had this, I would do that. If you had this, I would do that. But for me, it was always about the alcohol. And before that even, it was like, at a very young age, before I even took my first drink, my first addiction, I guess it would be, was we had this baseball card shop in town, and I would steal money. I was like 10 years old, and I'd steal money out of my mom's purse, and I'd go to this baseball card shop. And I'd go there, and I'd, open the packs of cards, and I'd take them to the dude, and he would be like, oh, yeah, this one's worth some money, this one's worth some money, and I'd trade them in for cash, and then I'd just keep buying until I was out of money, and so yeah, I mean, that was like my first go-to, and I would do that. But the second I found alcohol was the second that I realized that I had found something that I was going to do as much as possible every day, no matter what. And nothing bad happened, it was like humble beginnings. Like, I didn't get arrested the first time I drank. Nobody died. Nothing, I didn't go to jail. All that stuff, happened down the road, but that didn't happen to me, And it was like, okay, I'm doing this, and I took off, and I started drinking, I started smoking grass, and I started, doing other stuff. God, that kind of dates me saying grass, doesn't it? Jeez. I'm bringing it back. But yeah, so like, it was like, all right, I'm doing this, and, I got expelled from middle school, mostly because I didn't go, I would leave a lot. But it was back when like all that school shooting stuff happened too. And, it was like when the school shooting was getting really heavy, and one day I was already a terrible student and I wasn't going to graduate anyways, and I told my teacher, I hate you, die. And they took that very seriously, and they expelled me from middle school. So right away, I'm having to go to these special schools, and I got tutors, and my parents are trying to fix me, because they can't figure out what's wrong with their son, and so I was going to all these psychologists, and all these psychologists were putting me on all these different medications. I probably actually do have ADD, because Adderall doesn't work for me the way it works for some of you guys. But they had me on like Risperidol, which is like basically like a tranquilizer, lithium, all kinds of crazy shit. I just wouldn't take it a lot of the time, because I knew what I wanted to do, and that was to drink. I continued to do that, all the way through high school. In my high school, I manipulated, I enabled, they put me in special programs. I was given smoke breaks. I was able to do basically whatever I wanted, and I didn't go to school. But it's a bad record. It's a bad check mark if somebody drops out of school, so they're going to get you through, Worked at this gas station, which was perfect because I could just take beer out the back door whenever I wanted. Um, and it wasn't like I'm from Wisconsin, and that doesn't mean anybody unless you're from, and like that doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you're from Wisconsin. Because like drinking there is a way of life. It's just what you do, and so everything, I was able to hide kind of easily in that for a little while. It's like, okay, he drinks, so does everybody else. But perfect job for me, and I got school credit. So I was in high school working at this gas station, stealing beer out the back door, and getting credit for it. So eventually they just graduated me from high school, and I went to it from there. It was like I was going to do whatever I could to get the way I was going to get every day. Stealing money from my parents, stealing from you, stealing from cash registers at work, all kinds of stuff. Shortly after that, I got my first DUI. It was like I was, probably 18 years old, 19 years old, got my first DUI. Little backstory is like I had 17 underage drinkings by the time I turned 21. I don't know, because I was drinking all the time. It was like, I'm not going to not drink. I don't learn from consequences. By the end of all this, by the end of the time that I got sober and I was 25, been to jail multiple times, been hospitalized multiple times, had 3 DUIs, and just completely crazy, and nothing really like, other than the crazy stuff that was happening with the jails and the courts and all that stuff, it was like I would just drink no matter what. I get a DUI, they'd be like, you need to put one of these things on your car, otherwise you're not going to get your driver's license back, and I just wouldn't put one on. I'd continue to drive. I didn't have a driver's license for 8 years, because I just refused to get one of those breathalyzers, because then I couldn't drive my car, because I'm not going to stop drinking. That's just the way I am. I refuse. And I just kept getting pulled over and getting driving after revs and DUIs and stuff, and just rack it up, and I'd be like, okay, whatever, I get out of jail and jump in my car again and go to the thing, go to the liquor store. And I don't want to stand up here and talk to you guys like, oh God, my drinking was so bad, it was terrible, and it was, to everybody else around me it was, but to me I was having fun, it was the only normal life I really knew. I was having fun for a little while. It stopped being fun. The party didn't exist anymore at the end. There was no party for me to go to. In the end, it was me alone drinking myself to death, But I just did that. Drank, get arrested, things. And what happened was my body actually became like seriously, fully, dependent on alcohol. I would shake when I didn't drink. I would throw up when I didn't drink. Diarrhea for like 5 years straight. It was just a mess. It was just a mess. And I would wake up and I'd have it wasn't about, going out to the bars anymore and, these really nice, Grey Goose drinks. It was a backpack that I took everywhere with me that had a 175 of Pop-Off vodka in it, and I would take it every single place I went. When I went to bed, the bottle would be on my nightstand, and when I woke up, I would take a big chug, I'd put it back down, then I'd go back to bed. 25-year-old man living in my parents' basement. Actually I was like 22 then. But I did some, I was in a bar one day and some girl was crying. I said, "You're way too pretty to be crying," and I took a hostage and I moved in with her in like a couple days, and that was my place. Now I was like, okay, cool. So I got this chick. She's working. She's beside herself as to what the hell's going on with me. Poor girl. She didn't know what was happening. And I'm just throwing up all the time, and I'm not eating, and I weigh like 105 pounds, and I'm just skin and bones. And I would do these things where I'd like, at this point in time, I would do this thing where I'd like be like, okay, I'm quitting, I'm stopping, I gotta stop drinking, this is killing me, and I would go check myself into this detox, And it wasn't like a nice detox. It was like one of those detoxes where they take like the drunk guys on the street in. And I'd go in this place and I'd kick, man, and it was like, it was nuts in there. It'd be people screaming all the time and shit, and it was just like people bucking up out of their beds and just all kinds of stuff. And I'd go in there and I'd kick and I'd swear it off forever. And the second I walked out that door, I would be like, we got to stop by a liquor store. And my friends knew at this point, you know, and they're alcoholics, and like, you know, they're telling me like, dude, you got to stop this, you know, and I didn't know how. I had no idea. And I would tell them one more time, no, it's going to be different this time. You don't understand. I'd tell the girlfriend one more time, no, it's going to be different this time. You don't understand. And she'd be like, all right, well, if you're going to come home, you're going to get on Antabuse. And I'd be like, okay, I'll get on Antabuse. I'd go to the doctor. He'd fill me a script of Antabuse. I'd pour it out. I'd go get calcium pills and put the calcium pills in the bottle. And when she left for work in the morning, I'd go, hey, look, I'm taking my Antabuse. You know, and then I'd proceed to drink again. She'd be like, what the hell's going on? This stuff isn't supposed to, you know. She had no idea, you know. But that's what I do. I'm a liar, cheat, and a thief, you know, and I'm a small child. And I don't know how to deal with life. I cannot deal with life on life's terms. So what do? I drink. You know, and things progressively got worse. And I'm a slow burn, man. Like, I knew I was alcoholic long before I got in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just didn't really know what to do, and I really wasn't willing to stop. You know, I wanted to believe that I was willing to stop, but I just wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready to do anything that you guys suggested of me. And at this point in time, I was getting really sick of, you know, living with this girlfriend because she was like telling me how to live and telling me how to drink. So I walked into an apartment complex, and I had no job, no income, no anything, and I filled out an application for an apartment, and they were like, yeah, sure, come look at this one, and they gave it to me. You know, and I moved out in the middle of the night on this girlfriend, or no, I moved out while she was at work, and I moved into my, you know, loft apartment, and what I continued to do there was just drink. And I did it around the clock, and I barely left, and when I did leave, I would go down to the, you know, grocery store on the corner, and I would get, you know, my alcohol, and I'd go back to my house. You know, there wasn't any party anymore. My friends didn't want me around anymore because I was just a mess. I was causing problems, you know. I was a tornado just ripping through everybody's lives. And at this point in time, my parents had kind of like shrugged me off. But I told them I was in school, so they were still giving me some money so that I could buy alcohol, you know, and I'd be like, oh, I need money for tuition and blah, 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 and I wasn't even in school, you know. And I didn't last long there, and honestly, that was the best thing that I probably ever did for my alcoholism, because what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to drink without anchors. I had nobody around me that was telling me how I should and shouldn't drink. And when that happens to me, I'm going all in. You know, I'm completely in it. And one more time, you know, I used to slip into these things. I'd try to like kick on my couch too. Like I'd try to like, you know, but I was really scared of the seizures because I'd get seizures all the time when I'd try to stop drinking. So I'd like keep my phone right next to me if I had to call 911. But I'd also slip into these alcohol psychoses, and like I would literally like go out of my mind because of the alcohol effect physically on my body. And I was half naked, walking around Madison, Wisconsin, digging in a dumpster that was outside my apartment complex, and these two cops showed up, you know, and they were like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I lost my keys in here. And they were like, okay, come out here, you know, and they thought I was like a homeless person. I was like, no, I live right there, like, my keys, you know, and they were like, all right. So they gave me a breathalyzer, and it blew 0-0 because I was like trying to kick, you know, and I was in one of those psychoses. And I was like, no, you don't understand, I'm a real alcoholic. And they were like, whatever. They threw me in the back of the cop car and took me down to that same detox that I've checked myself into multiple times. And, you know, I got to the detox, and the guy who ran it knew me because I've been there so many times, and he goes, no, this is Nate. He's a real alcoholic. He has to go to the hospital. So the ambulance showed up, and the last thing I remember is seeing the emergency room sign. I had grand mal seizure and ended up in the ICU for like the third or fourth time from alcoholism. And I don't remember a lot because they had me so pumped full of Ativan that like it's all kind of a blur. But some point in time in there, some person came in. I don't remember the person. I don't know who they are, and they asked me if I wanted to go to a 30-day treatment center. It was in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and I guess I said okay. You know, and all I can really chalk that up to is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because I'm not the type of person that would do that. I don't do people. I don't do this, you know. You wouldn't catch me dead doing something like this when I was out there. And I said okay, and you know, they got me medically detoxed, and they let me out, and they said, okay, tomorrow you're going to Nova, and I said okay, and I went home to Mommy and Daddy's house, and I, you know, was like, I got to go out and get a pack of smokes, and I went out and got another bottle of alcohol, you know, because I couldn't do it. I can't be sober. But the next day I did go. You know, they woke me up and they said, all right, it's time to go, and I just said okay. You know, my ass was kicked. I'd had enough. I was willing to start maybe possibly thinking about trying something different. You know, and I went to this 30-day treatment center. It was cool. We played a lot of volleyball. I ate food, which I hadn't done in a long time. And you know, and that was, and you know, I had the worst heartburn of my life. Oh God, it's terrible. But I was crazy. You know, I was absolutely nuts in that place, and I was literally huddled in the corner, like, stay away from me, don't talk to me, get away from me. You know, just scared child is what I was. You know, somewhere along those lines, somebody had asked me, you know, hey, we really think that, you know, you're a real alcoholic and you need to go to this halfway house, or it was a recovery home in Prescott, Arizona. And I said okay, because one thing happened to me while I was in that 30-day treatment center. The only thing that really happened to me, and I remember the moment I was walking by the fireplace in the joint, and I had something that said to me that you cannot do this by yourself. That's the moment that I had when I was in this treatment center, right? And so I said okay, you know, and I didn't know what I was saying okay to. I just said okay. It was the scariest damn thing I ever did in my life, you know. I'm flying and leaving everything, which I didn't have much, you know, but in my head I'm like, oh my God, I'm leaving everything. You know, and I fly out to Prescott, Arizona, and I sign up, you know, and I talk to the guy on the phone who just sounds absolutely crazy, who's now my sponsor and has been my sponsor for 10 years. But he's just like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I get there, and I'm expecting to see, like, doctors and shit, and, like, you know, like you see in, like, a treatment center. But no, it's just, like, 3 houses and a bunch of dudes. And, you know, they're like, okay, you know, and they picked me up from the shuttle. And I sat down, and, you know, I told my story. I need to back up a little bit because it's an important part of my story. So in between me getting out of that 30-day rehab and me going to Prescott, my dad is like does public speaking, and he has these like benzos that he takes for, you know, to cool out at the podium. And I decided that, you know, well, I need something to cool out right now, so I took one of these pills, you know. Didn't do anything to me, didn't even really feel anything. But, you know, I came to Prescott, Arizona with my sobriety date as when I went into Nova. Didn't want to tell you guys. Didn't think it was important because it didn't get me high. So I went to it. You know, I honestly believe that there was multiple factors that played into me getting sober. One of the biggest ones being is I was thrown into a group of guys who were serious as hell about getting sober. You know, and these guys took me and they managed my life, and they said, you're going to go here, A, B, and C, and D today, and you're going to, you know, do this and do that, and here's, you know, who we think your best sponsor would be. And for whatever reason, my ass was so kicked, I just said okay. You know, and I was like, as Joe talked about, it's like the word is, it's the language of surrender. You know, it's my first step today. It's just to say okay. You know, and I just started doing it. You know, I just started doing what these guys around me were doing. You know, and I started working the steps, and I started doing stuff that was super uncomfortable. You know, it was like one of the deals is like we had to like get numbers from guys and get coffee, and we had to get a ride home from a meeting every single week, otherwise Rick wouldn't let us use the van. Stuff like that, and it was uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable to do, but I did it, because the thing was too is like if I didn't get a ride home, none of us got to use the van, So then I'm letting down my brothers too, and we were so close knit, and it got weird, a lot of nakedness and a lot of stuff like that, but it was fun as hell, naked 11 steps, and like, just all kinds of, guys being guys, but we were having fun. We really were. I learned how to have fun in sobriety doing that, and I started to mold this thing, and I started to grab onto the sobriety. It didn't happen all at once, I was still crazy, but these guys were there enough to walk me through it, and I was asking people everything. I was just at my home group before this meeting, and I was like, man, when I was first sober, I was like, do I eat at Carl Jr.'s or do I eat at Chick-fil-A? I was like, that's the kind of shit I was calling my sponsor with, and it's like, and he was nice enough that he was like, cool, man, let's talk about it, I don't know, it was just all about time and attention. It was all about that stuff. So I started, I went through the house. I made it 6 months, and by the 6 months, I went home on like a pre-amends trip, and I had done a couple of direct amends, and this program was really working for me. It really was, and and for the first time, I don't remember when it was, but I absolutely felt free from alcohol. And I was able to walk into a grocery store and not fixate on that bottle of vodka. It looked like soda to me, and that for me, for a guy like me who drank the way that I did, is a miracle. So I was in it, man. I was like, cool, this thing is working, and let's do it as much as possible. Just like the way I took to drinking, it's like, okay, this thing's working, let's do it as much as possible, and I did. I graduated from the house. Moved in with alumni from the house, and I went to it, and I was sponsoring guys, and I did every single service commitment known to man in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've taken I've taken meetings into jails. I've been GSR. I've done all this stuff, and I was just immersed in it. I was all involved in ACIPA, and I was on the chair committee, and we ran a bunch of the stuff and all that stuff. And about 10 months sober, I met the girl in the rooms. Actually, I met her at this meeting. This is one of the first meetings I went to, by the way, when I got to Prescott, Arizona. And so this meeting means a lot to me. And this meeting's been here for a long time. There's a few meetings in town that actually have been around as long as this meeting has. But this is one of the first meetings I came to when I was here. And, I met her in the program, Girl Meets Guy, AA Campus, as it says in 12 and 12, And she was doing the deal. I was doing the deal. She was just excited about sobriety as I was, and we took off, dating and doing this thing together, and we were both, sponsoring. Like, at one point in time, I heard the speaker say, "Never say no" one time, and I think at one point in time I ended up with like 15 sponsees at one time, and that was just too many, but you live and you learn. But I even went up to the dude after the meeting. I was like, you don't understand. If I say yes to all these dudes, I'm going to have like 15 sponsees. And he's like, so do it. I was a speaker at Prescott Shoestring Roundup. And I did it, and it was terrible. But anyways, so I did. I continued doing this thing. And, man, I got cool shit fast, I decided, what I wanted to do in this program with my life. I got to start over. I got a whole new lease on it, I decided I want to be a fireman. So I went forth and I started doing that, and I work in the fire service today. I decided that, I wanted to, do this, and I would do that. Things things started materializing in my life that I had no clue were possible, you know. Um, and, you know, you get all the cool shit here. You know, I got 6 figures in the bank account. I got a boat. I got a motorcycle. I got a big-ass house. I got a wife. You know, me and the girl got married. And I got a wife. And I got 2 kids. I have 2 girls, 4 and 5. And Alcoholics Anonymous slowly became less important. You know, it became about more for me. It became about, you know, I need the 6-figure bank account, and I need to go on all these vacations, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and slowly but surely, you know, I'm going to less meetings a week, and I'm not sponsoring guys anymore, and things are going downhill pretty quickly. And, you know, in all this, too, like, right around all this is happening is, I worked on a crew in 2012, and because my wife got pregnant with our first kid, I decided that I wanted to go into the structure side of things, which is the guys you see around in big red trucks, right? And so I started really focusing my energy on that, because when you're a wildland firefighter, you're gone for 6 months out of the year, you know. And I worked on this crew in 2012, and I got a call, you know, and it was kind of a weird situation. I was kind of in between jobs type thing. But I was down in Phoenix, and I was helping my wife's grandma out with her back. She was having back problems. She had to have surgery and fusion discs and all this shit. But I got a call, you know, that was like, hey, we're going on this fire. We really need a filler. One of the guys is having a kid. And I would have went, but I couldn't, because I was down there helping somebody out. And all of those gentlemen died in that fire. And I did not. And, you know, that kind of, I didn't know how to deal. I didn't know how to deal with that. You know, it was like, how do you deal with, like, you know, guys that you traveled around the country with in a tin can, all of a sudden gone, you know? And superintendent of that crew was a member of my home group too, and me and him were really, really close, you know. You know, and I didn't know it until quite recently, but I think I probably deal with like some survivor's guilt from all that. And this isn't something that I've ever really talked about that much, because when it happened, I really wanted it to be about them, and I didn't want it to be about me, you know. And the only person that I really ever talked to about was my sponsor and a couple of my close friends. You know, people who knew me and people who knew what I was doing and stuff like that. But, you know, that's kind of when the ball started rolling, you know. And then shortly after that happened, my wife, who was my best friend in Alcoholics Anonymous, my best friend in life, my best friend all over the place, came to me and said, I don't think I'm alcoholic anymore. And I said, I remember my words specifically, I said, I've never disagreed with anything you've said more, but okay. You know, because she's like me, she drinks like me. And it went bad right away, you know. And here I am going to 1 meeting a week, don't really have any sort of anchor in Alcoholics Anonymous anymore. I'm showing up to meetings at 5:30 and I'm leaving at 6:30, and I am completely crushed, you know. You know, and it got real, and I got 2 babies, you know. I got 2 babies. I got at the time they were like 1 and 2, you know. So now I'm like immediately cast into being a single dad, crazy as hell, because she ain't around. You know, and she would get sober a little bit, and I'd try to fix her, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, you know, we'll try and make it work. And there was some infidelity and stuff, but she came to me and told me, so I was like, okay, we'll try and make it work. And you know, that insanity went on for a long time. You know, of me trying to, you know, keep my family together, because I guess I got Midwest family values or whatever you want to call it, you know. But like, it was me trying to keep my family together, and it was dragging me down in the process, you know, because her problems then became my problems. Every time she had a problem, I'd get involved in that problem, and then it'd be my problem, you know, and I'm not well, you know, and I had a breaking point, you know, 8 years sober, and I got a gun, and I'm going to end it because I can't handle it anymore. I can't take it on anymore. You know, I'm all in my head about me, and it's all about me and how all this is affecting me and poor me and this or that or the other thing. And, you know, I almost lost my life because of it. But I didn't. I called my sponsor, said, hey, man, there's a gun here. And, you know, he said, come over right away. And I did, and I gave him my gun. And, you know, he's like, Nate, there's only one solution. You know, and I can't make you do it, you know, and at this point in time, I still knew that Alcoholics Anonymous was a solution. However, I just wasn't ready, you know. So I continued on, you know, and I dragged myself back into a group, you know, where I knew people who I got sober with, you know, and I dragged myself back into this group. And you know, some of the guys, they're not here tonight, but like they know that like I'd go there and I'd be like, I don't want to be here, but I know that this is the solution, and here I am. And they loved me through it. They didn't treat me like I had a disease, you know. And slowly things started to get better. You know, slowly things started to come back for me. You know, and I slowly got enough courage to get the divorce and, you know, get the custody of the kids and become a single dad and take that on and, you know, work my way through things that, like, just seemed to be raining down on me. You know, that six-figure bank account's gone. You know, it's like, that's you know, a thing of the past. You know, but what I did do is I continued to come back to Alcoholics Anonymous and be here even when I didn't want to be here through all of that. And it saved my life one more time. You know, and I guess, you know, looking back on it, I'm still unclear on, you know, I really wanted to tell my story lately because I've been really unclear on everything that happened. You know, and now that I'm standing here telling you guys this, I'm still pretty unclear. But, you know, I wasn't well, you know, and there was harm caused, and, you know, and tried to be everything to everyone. You know, I'm like, okay, these girls need to be taken care of, you know. So I jumped right into making them my world, you know, and then I realized that that's not working for me, you know, and I jump back into, okay, well, now I need to get this better job, you know, because that'll fix things. If I get more money and I get more prestige and all this stuff, that will work for me, you know. So I went for the job, I got it, and then I realized I didn't want it, and now I'm back at my old job again, just because I was, like, willing to take the next step, you know. And, you know, around all this time, too, the halfway house that I, you know, got sober in, grew into this like big treatment center type thing, and then it crumbled. And you know, just fairly recently they opened it back up again as a recovery home, you know. And no, we don't do naked 11 steps anymore. That's a thing of the past. But, you know, maybe someday, I don't know. Probably not. But I started coming around these guys again, and I started helping other people. And I started sponsoring people, and you know, I started to get the gift again, and I started to regain a conscious contact with God because I had lost that a while ago. You know, in my eyes, you know, it was like, okay, you know, obviously God isn't working here, you know, because He's not doing the things that I, you know, want Him to do, you know. So I just completely abandoned it, and I started managing. And I started managing everything, and I got miserable as shit, you know. And, you know, now that I'm standing here telling you guys all this, I'm completely realizing that, like, all of these problems were of my own making. I made these problems, you know. Yeah, things happen in life. And like Joe said, it's not all purple farts and rainbows. You know, but to me, I make things substantially harder than they have to be. You know, I am the manufacturer of my misery in my life. Because in my mind, at the core of alcoholism lies spiritual immaturity. Because when I came into this program, I was very much like my daughter, a 5-year-old girl who stomps her feet and says, I don't wanna. And that's just a child. You know, I was very much a child when I came in here. You know, and I stomped my feet and I don't wanna. You know, I was doing that at 8 years sober, 35-year-old man, stomping his feet like a little baby, you know. And the truth of the matter is like, no, like, to be spiritually mature, for me, what does that mean today? You know? And for me, that means doing a lot of things I don't want to do. You know, that was beat into my head a lot because God's will doesn't look like I want it to look. But for me, it's about doing everything that I know I need to be doing, even though it sucks a lot of the time. You know? My sponsor always used to say, recovery doesn't feel good. You know? And I really like that. I mean, that's about as easy as you can put it. It doesn't. It doesn't feel good. I want the now. I want the right here. I want it. I want what I want when I want it. You know, and recovery isn't like that. It takes time. It's a process. You know, and it starts with doing things like showing up for other alcoholics and stuff. And like, am I going to feel better that day? No. When I dragged my ass back into that AA meeting and spoke honestly for the first time in a long time, did I feel great? No. I felt terrible. You know, but slowly it started to get better again. And slowly things started to materialize for me again. And today I'm making it work. You know, life's still hard, you know. I'm a single dad, you know, and yeah, that's tough, you know. But it's what's in the will today, you know. It's like, okay, I'm going to move forward, you know. But I've started to listen to God again, and I've started to make decisions with Him today that make my life easier instead of harder. Because the easier, softer way for me is the harder, grindier, scratchier way, you know, because I always want to do the easier, softer way, and the easier, softer way gets me nowhere. The harder, grindier, scratchier way gets me somewhere, and I try to practice those every day, you know. But I started sponsoring these guys, you know, and things started to really materialize for me, and like, I'm happy again. You know, I dealt with depression through all this. I dealt with a lot of things through all this. But, you know, I forget that I get to do whatever I want in this program. You know? And to me today, it's not about the job. It's not about the money. It's not, and I'm going to forget this tomorrow, okay? So I'm glad that Kirk's recording this so I can listen to it some other day. It's not about the big cars. It's not about the big houses. It's not about, you know, even my kids. Okay? And some of you are going to go, what the fuck? You know, no, it's not even about my kids today. Today it's about me being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous first. Because if I do not, I will end up with a gun at my head again. And I can't tell you guys why I didn't want to drink. Part of me knew it wasn't going to do anything. It wasn't going to work, you know. It wasn't going to do what I needed to do, which was shut this up. And that's part of my story is like, you know, no matter how much I drank, I couldn't shut my head up. No matter how fast, no matter how many drugs I did, no matter how many lines of coke I did, all that stuff. I couldn't get it to shut up. So today, first and foremost, Alcoholics Anonymous has to be my primary purpose in life. And I had that at one point in time, and I had forgotten it, and I almost paid the ultimate price for it. So I guess my message today is one of caution. You guys are all going to go out there and do whatever the hell you want to do anyways. You know, you're all going to get your experience. I could stand up here and say this all day, you know, and you're probably still going to go get the big life and the big car, and, you know, I hope you call me one day. I hope that I get to be the guy on the other end of that line that gets to help you, because that's what this program is all about. I need to get out of myself. This is going to sound weird, and into you. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. This has been a regular meeting of the Rarely Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. You are cordially invited to join us again next week. Please bring a friend. There are approximately 100 meetings of AA each week in the Prescott area. We advise that you attend as many as possible, and we hope you will join us again soon. Let's circle up and say the Lord, or after the prayer, the people who volunteered to do that stuff, and your core cards are on the back table. Let's circle up and say the Lord's Prayer. Thank you all for coming.